Hey everybody, my name's Ashley Collins. I'm a YA generalist at the main branch downtown, and today we're going to be going through our last video in the I Read a Roadmap book talk series, where I take you through a lot of different books from different states in the country. Today's last video is focusing on the northeastern states, and like I've said, all the other videos, everything can be found in our collection to place a hold on, or if you're into digital, a lot of it's available digitally too. So definitely check those catalogs out as well. It's kind of the end of the road for us, but I hope I can take you through some more good books and hope you can find a new book to pick up before the series ends. So, with that being said, let's get started. So, first up, we're going to go to Connecticut with a boarding school mystery and a fun twist on Sherlock Holmes. And that is A Study in Charlotte by Brittany Cavallaro. So, this one actually follows the direct descendants of Holmes and Watson in a really cool modern day twist on the original mysteries. And so, our main protagonist is Jamie Watson, who doesn't really want to go to this Connecticut prep school called Sherringford, and especially not on a rugby scholarship, even if it means getting away from his estranged father. The real big problem, though, is that Charlotte Holmes goes there, and though she's just as genius as Sherlock was as his great 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 granddaughter, she's equally as volatile in temperament. The two do eventually meet, but Jamie decides it's better to stay away because the tension between them just kind of sets them as being rivals. But unfortunately, life doesn't work out how Jamie wants it, because when students start to die at Sherringford, Jamie and Charlotte's names are being blamed, and Charlotte turns out to be the only one that can clear it. This is the start of a series. It's a 4-book series. It's a romance, but it's a slow burn romance, very complicated, and the mysteries and some of the villains you may be very familiar with from the Sherlock stories or show do pop up in here, and it's just a super cool twist and take on the Sherlock Holmes world. Love it. Next up is kind of a YA classic for the state of Delaware, and that is Trouble's Daughter by Katherine Kirkpatrick. And so this actually is based on a true story about Susanna Hutchinson, who was captive to Native Americans. And it's kind of just follows her coming of age in that circumstance. And it really examines the role of women both in colonial society and in the society of Native Americans. Totally a good way to kind of access this story that a lot of people don't know about and kind of explore that history just differently than you're used to. And a great story coming out of Delaware as well. All right, for Maine, which as most of us know is more famous for horror and Stephen King than a lot of other stuff, we're going to go a little sci-fi dystopian with DJ McHale's Silo. This one is a really cool government conspiracy sci-fi, which always is fun to read about. And so it follows Tucker, who's the kind of guy that likes to stay under the radar. He's totally comfortable showing tours around his hometown, totally comfortable staying on the benches and the football team. And even though his best friend Quinn's always telling him to go for it, he's comfortable not asking out Tori because there's always tomorrow. Until one day, that might not be the case. Because when a government agency called Silo invades his hometown, Tucker has to realize that sitting on the sidelines may not be all it's cracked up to be, and certainly won't keep his friends, and the town safe. And so Tucker, Quinn, and Tori team up to uncover the truth about Silo and save their hometown and the rest of the world before it's too late. This is the first in a trilogy, so if you're looking for something like this is a perfect kind of easy read, quick paced, really interesting stuff. Totally recommend this. DJ McHale has been a favorite author of mine since I was a kid, so I'm a little fond of him, but just amazing stuff all around. Okay, for Massachusetts, we're going to go with one of my favorite YA thriller mysteries, probably of all time, and that is E. Lockhart's We Were Liars. This book is kind of hard to describe without spoiling anything because the fun of this book is the huge twist at the end that you probably won't see coming. But just to give you a little bit of idea of some things that are in the book, there's a beautiful and distinguished family, a private island, a brilliant damaged girl, and a passionate political boy. And it follows a group of 4 friends called the Liar, whose friendship kind of becomes destructive leads to a revolution and an accident. There's secrets and lies, so many lies, but eventually you get to the truth at the bottom of this suspense thriller. And the only way to get to that truth is to read it. And if anyone asks you how it ends, as they say, just lie. Like I said, one of my favorites. To this day, I love seeing people read this for the first time and figure out what's happened. It's mind-blowing. I totally recommend this one as well. Okay, so to the state of Maryland, we're going to go a bit lighter and fair to a rom-com called The Upside of Unrequited by Becky Albertalli. So this one follows Molly, who is a fat girl and who has always been in unrequited love. In fact, she's gone through unrequited love 26 times. But she always keeps her loves and her crushes a secret, so no one ever knows about it, hence why they stay unrequited. And then there's her sister Cassie, who's cynical about love and is always telling her to just woman up and go for it. But Molly can't stand the idea of rejection. But one day the tables turn because Cassie finds a girl that she really loves and is making her lovesick, which kind of works out for Molly because Cassie's new girlfriend comes with this cool hipster guy named Will, who's super flirtatious, and he's totally crushable material. Except for the fact that Molly keeps getting distracted by Reed, the super awkward Tolkien superfan that she happens to work with. But Molly's not going to fall for Reed, right? Like I said, a really great rom-com, totally just really relives those teen years of unrequited crushes and awkwardness and kind of coming into yourself and, opening up to yourself too. So perfect rom-com and kind of just coming of age book for what you're looking for right now, hopefully. Okay, so now we're going to go to New Hampshire with one of YA's heaviest hitter authors, and that is Laurie Halse Anderson coming in with Winter Girls. This book is about eating disorders, so if that's sensitive for you, just make sure you're aware of that if you want to read it. But it follows two best friends, Leah and Cassie, who were winter girls frozen in matchstick bodies. And they're in a deadly contest to see who can be the skinniest. And you kind of have to wonder what comes after size 0 and size 00. Well, for Cassie, that ends up being her death, unfortunately. So Leah is left behind, kind of haunted by the loss of Cassie, but starting to recover and become a little healthier again. But Cassie's death leaves Leah feeling like there's more she could have done and just a huge sense of guilt. Laurie Halse Anderson writes some of the most beautiful novels. Her most famous is probably Speak. This is another just heavy hitter, emotional, but like so beautiful and so worth the read. All right, for New Jersey, we're going to go into the supernatural world with Holly Black's Tiff. This is the first of one of her many fairy books. She loves to write about fairies, and she does a great job of it. And in this book, we follow Kay, who lives the traditional nomad life with her mother and her rock band as they tour across the country until an ominous attack forces Kay back to her hometown. Once there, in the industrial blue-collar New Jersey, Kay finds herself an unwilling pawn in a rivalry between two fairy kingdoms, and that power struggle could very well lead to her death. This is a bit of an older YA, but it still really holds up today. It blends that perfect high school realism in with the fairy world. It's super sarcastic and biting. Kay is just like a really cool protagonist, and the romance in here is so great. If you're looking for something like this, totally recommend Holly Black and Tiff. Okay, so for those of us that are thinking about Hamilton still, because who really ever stops thinking about Hamilton, it feels like, we're going to go into New York with a fun historical novel, and that is Hamilton and Peggy, and this one is by L.M. Eliot. This one is a really cool fictionalization and a little bit of a further delve into Peggy's character. For those of you that don't know, historically, Peggy actually died pretty early on, which is why in the musical you don't see her much later in the show past the marriage of Eliza and Hamilton. So in this book, obviously, as you might know from the musical, Peggy is the lesser Schuyler sister. She's not the smart and intelligent Angelica, nor is she the sweet, kind, and beautiful Eliza. But when Alexander Hamilton, who was an aide-de-camp to George Washington during the Revolutionary War, writes to Peggy begging for her help in wooing the beautiful Eliza, Peggy's skeptical, but is inclined to go ahead and agree and help the man out because she can't deny a passionate plea. and so begins her own journey into the revolution. This is also just full of a lot of spy stuff and conspiracy, and it really gives Peggy a chance to kind of shine and have her story told a little bit more than we've heard it ever before. Totally love this. It's a great way to continue exploring that time period if you're also interested in that. All right, so now we're going to go to Pennsylvania with A.S. King's Please Ignore Vera Dietz. So this one is about Vera, who spent her whole life in love with her best friend Charlie secretly, but then Charlie kind of betrays her and ruins everything. Until Charlie dies in dark and unusual circumstances, however, and Vera realizes she might be the person who's known him and all his secrets best. More than the classmates, more than his family, and even more than the police. And so when Charlie's name needs to be cleared, Vera is the only one that has the power to come forward and do so. But will she actually do it? A.S. King is one of those amazing authors in YA. She's constantly writing cool and new stuff, and this one's no exception. This is a totally awesome novel. It really helps you kind of delve into the complications of love, friendship, and the complications of grief and loss as well. So totally recommend that. So next we're going to go to Rye, Rhode Island with a kind of magical realism mystery thriller. It's a pretty odd book, but I want to recommend it anyway. And that's Neverworld Wake by Marisha Pessl. So this one is a really interesting book. It follows 5 friends and a girl named Beatrice, who all used to be the cool kids. They were super tight, cliquey kind of group, until the shocking death of Jim, who was their creative genius and Beatrice's boyfriend, splits them up and kind of separates Beatrice from the rest of the pack. 1 year later, Beatrice finally feels ready to go back to Wincroft, which is the seaside estate where they all used to hang out, share secrets, and figure out how they would change the world, hoping to kind of give the answers to the dark questions that have plagued her since Jim's death. When she first gets there, she doesn't think she's ever going to get answers because meeting up with her old friends turns to be awkward and weird, and it seems like they're keeping a lot of secrets. But then a mysterious man knocks at the door and tells them something surprising. Time for them has been frozen in place, and they can only come out of that frozen time if they make the harshest decisions they can. And now Beatrice has one last chance at getting the answers of what ended Jim's life, and possibly another chance at life itself. And so begins The Neverworld Wake. This is a book it's really difficult to describe. It's hard to place it in a genre, in a box, but if it sounds interesting, if you're interested in that mystery and that exploration and kind of a loose image into time, I think this is definitely worth picking up. It's a page turner for sure. You can't really put it down. And it's definitely a surprising end. So I hope if you're interested in that, you would check it out and see what you think. Okay, and last but certainly not least of all of our states, the 50th state, we're going to go to Vermont with one of my favorite YA mystery book series right now that's out, and that is Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson. And for those of you that don't know, this one is also one of our SC Book Award nominees for the 2020 to 2021 year, and seems perfectly apt to me because this is one of the coolest mystery series, kind of in the vein of your Nancy Drews and Hardy Boys that I've read in quite a while. So this story actually takes place in 2 different centuries, in the 20th and the 21st century. The book starts off in the 20th century at Ellingham Academy, which is a famous private school designed for creators, thinkers, and inventors in the 20th century by a rich tycoon who wanted it to be a place where it's full of riddles and full of learning, making it fun. Unfortunately, that kind of goes south on him as a student dies and his wife and child is taken kidnapped, and the only clue left is a mysterious rhyming riddle signed, Truly Devious. Unfortunately, their disappearance becomes the greatest unsolved American crime in history, and it remains unsolved until the 21st century when Stevie Bell, upcoming first-year student at the Ellingham Academy, which does still run, is set to solve that cold case. That is her senior thesis. That's what she's going to do at the end of the school year, or the end of her 3 years in the school. But when she gets there, Truly Devious makes a surprising return, and people start dying again, and it's up to Stevie to figure out the clues of the past to solve the mystery of the present. This is the first in a trilogy. It's such a satisfying trilogy. The mystery is so deep and complex, and you really don't see the twists coming for either part of the mystery, past or present day. And Stevie Bell is not just going to be tied to the Ellingham mystery. Maureen Johnson is writing another book where Stevie Bell has a new mystery coming out next year. So if you love Stevie and you love this book, stay tuned because there's definitely more on the way. All right, guys, that's the last of the iReader Roadmap book talk. I've had a great time in these 5 videos sharing a bunch of recommendations from different states. And these are only just 50. There were other YA books in different states too. There were plenty more where that came from. So, if you're ever looking for something specific, let us know. Shoot us an email at teenunderground@ccpl.org and we can help you out. But with that being said, I've had a great time. I hope you enjoyed this road trip, and I'll see you guys around. Bye!